when the past impacts the future, you have to consider the past.
The Supreme Court is due to make a decision pretty soon, sir, on segregation in the schools. Now, how do you Georgians think that decision is going to go?
If they follow the law, as all lawyers understand it, they will uphold the present method, which is separate but equal schools, and each state themselves may determine whether they want to maintain and preserve segregation or whether they want to change it.
Our parents raised us to live in a two-system society. Okay, we realized that there were certain things we couldn't do. There were certain things we could do.
Certain places you didn't go and certain things that you didn't do because you knew what the consequences would be along racial lines.
Growing up in a segregated society, you didn't feel a lot of things. You didn't see a lot of things. You didn't experience a lot of things.
Mama and Daddy did their best, their level best to shield us from as much of that as they could.
You know, you realize what they would call your place. And we didn't like it. But they taught us how to work around it.
We grew up from early childhood, knowing what the rules and regulations were and how to keep yourself out of trouble.
As a matter of fact, the old saying, you knew your position and that's where you were able to stay in order to keep down confusion.
And that was obviously for our protection.
If you were going downtown with Mama, and Mama would give you that talk, don't touch nothing. Don't even brush up against anything. And every black kid got that talk, that lecture.
Young kids would pretty much rent out the store. They didn't let us go in the stores if we didn't wasn't in there with the grown up. And they did not let us in a lot of the stores downtown.
And there were other places that kind of you could go in, but folks would watch you as if you was trying to steal something.
I lived in an integrated neighborhood. There were 7 families right off of East Hill. In there, we didn't have too much trouble at first. As long as you stayed in that area, you're there. But now when you went over on the other side of on Magnolia, well, you got dog six on you. You got, the N-word called, and this was in early 60s. So it was real rough during that time.
Public facilities like the bus station, where there was segregation there. There's the white waiting room, black waiting room.
Doctor's offices, they were segregated.
It was very much prevalent downtown Valdosta. You know, you had the separate water fountains.
Well, you couldn't use the water fountains.
I was always curious about those water fountains because we had the little skinny water fountain that was, was cracked or whatever, and they had this really nice big water fountain. And I'm like, it must taste better than our water. So I kind of looked around, and then I ran over there and I turned it, and it was cold. That was the difference. It was cold water.
You had the areas inside of Crest where they served food that you couldn't go in there and buy food, and it wasn't only Crest, it was Burger King, Dairy Queen.
Even the Dairy Queen had separate facilities for the white and the black.
If you went to buy something at a white restaurant, you would have to go to an outside window.
And you had restaurants that said colored only. You go in the back door, and the whites go in the front door. Now you eat the same food, and you got black cooks. For all thing you weren't doing was sitting in their in the part where they were. They had air conditioning in their section, and we had a big fan.
Quarries or something like that. We couldn't eat there, or if we did, the area was segregated.
Man, the hitching post was popular back in the day. My buddies worked there, but they couldn't eat there.
Even in the theaters, you had to sit upstairs from them. You had a separate entrance.
The Valdosta Theater, and you were able to go there, but it was segregated. You were upstairs, and it was nasty. It was not kept.
The courthouse, you go around. That's the one side, the white restrooms and things. You go around the bottom, the black restrooms, and it had on there color only, white only.
They had a drive-in theater, but you couldn't go. You had to park on the side of the road in order to view the screen and not hear the words being spoken.
That was the life it was. It was a lot of segregation going on and a lot of violence put in Valdosta. It really was,
Like where we lived, we called it Ray's Alley. And you didn't see too many white people there unless they were bringing the maid home or picking up the maid or whatever. But white men would ride up and down that street sometimes. And if they saw you, they would stop and say nasty things to you. That kind of thing.
When I was growing up in the 40s, at least at 6, no later than 7 o'clock, you had to be in.
Walking downtown or walking from home from the football game, I've been to car, somebody threw a monkey wrench out the back of the car, hit me in the back. They pull you up to the car and spit in your face.
Maybe somebody might be riding or you walking, somebody might scream out the N-word, what are you doing over here, or something like that.
Colored white guys would ride in the neighborhood and do all that kind of stuff to you. Catch one of you down there and it beat the mess out you.
You heard stories, finding, I don't know if you ever heard of Mud Swamp, finding black women in Mud Swamp, that kind of thing. But you never knew if it was true or not. It was just rumors.
We mostly didn't go anywhere by ourselves. We were always either with classmates or our siblings. And like you said, we knew when to be back.
Yeah, we knew the boundaries of that line. And I remember, I didn't understand it at the time, but it was a cross burning in our front yard. I remember that as a little boy. And my daddy came home and put it out. And we didn't know what it was. We just stayed in the house. Said, who want to burn a cross in our yard? But then when I learned more about it, I was told it was from the Ku Klux Klan.
I remember a friend of my daddy, they burnt a cross out on Stateville Highway in front of his door. And the next day, while his daughter was getting on the bus at that time, they killed her.
You could be walking the streets and white police officers would stop and just harass you at whim.
The police officers, if Johnson was on his motorcycle, you were harassed. If you had a car that was not well kept, you were harassed. But you couldn't afford to do anything any better.
We were actually afraid. As children, as kids, we were actually afraid of white police.
And I've had the police stop me in the middle of the day. Come here. What you doing over here? Where you got? So I'm just walking out here looking at the house. You know you don't have no, you know you don't supposed to be over here.
And I lived on the street, Backdoor Street. I told my wife Francis. And for years, all right, the paved part of the street ended where the last house that the residents were. And from that point on, it was dirt. Valdosta, Fort Valdosta. Many of your streets in the black neighborhood were free, and it was based on race.
The thing that I try to stress to young people now is the fact that we were in a position that was the way of life.
We accepted it because that's the way it was. We didn't know any different, at the time.
And with the laws and the way things were set up, we didn't have too much of a chance because most of our parents were not highly educated, and they didn't know because this is what they came up from. They was doing the best with what they knew.
When you live in a certain way, you don't realize that things that you're not around these things every day, so you don't know what you're missing. So we just made do.
And so this is why they pushed us a lot to get educated. They knew there had to be a better life for us. So this is why they pushed us to get educated.
Well, if all of us think back over our lives, we didn't get where we are by ourselves. Somebody pushed you along.
Personally, I was so engrossed in being a Pinevale Tiger until that's all I was concerned about.
Pinevale was quite a school.
Growing up as a kid, your desire was to get to Pinevale.
This school was the heartbeat of this community.
It was just genuine love at the school. And we were so grateful. We had to learn. There's no such thing I cannot do. I can.
I grew up with my teachers knowing my parents.
They knew my grandfather, they knew my mother and my father.
But about 75% of the teachers lived in my neighborhood.
We knew our teachers.
Exactly.
We knew our teachers. We knew our teachers' children. Their kids went to school with us.
Some of the other teachers taught my mom as well. Yes, so they kind of knew them, and they kind of that would keep us more, should I say, in line.
Well, knowing all of the teachers, knowing part of the students, either from school or church, knowing their families. At that time, I was pretty sharp in mind. I would know all of the parents' names and their telephone numbers and all that kind of stuff like that. So it was just like family,
If anything was out of line, my mother would know about it before I got home after school.
There was a problem with any of us. We threw a brick and broke somebody's glass or something. We were dealt with, not necessarily from our parents, but from the people in the community.
If a teacher were to see you do something that you shouldn't have been doing outside of the classroom at a in a different setting, all right, I'm going to tell your mama, I'm going to tell your daddy. And they would.
It was like you were supervised all the time. You were never left unsupervised. You were either supervised by someone in the community. You was either supervised by your teachers. You know, even at church. You know, so.
We have every now and then you might have a fight, but that was so rare because you knew if you got in a fight, you were gonna get your butt busted. You weren't gonna get suspended. We didn't do it. It's all this suspended. I don't think a child ever got suspended for Pinevale. If you did, it was something so rare until I can't even remember what it might have been. You got popped, you got home, he done called your mama, and you got your butt popped again. So you got double poppings.
See, back then, we didn't have no alternative school. Parents took care of everything.
There was no expulsions. You had to really do something awful to be expelled. You know, our biggest thing was you chewing gum in class or you smoking in the bathroom. So,
The way you handle discipline probably determines the future of a student. If you're too hot with discipline and you cause a child to drop out of school, then you have wrecked somebody's life.
It was eyes on you all the time.
Everybody knew. Everybody. So, you know.
So, you know, we being children, we had to be the best. We had to be on our best behaviors, you know.
Hey, we knew every teacher.
Mabel Brinson and I, we attended church together at Macedonia First Baptist Church. Matter of fact, it was Mr. and Mrs. Brinson who were instrumental in really getting me to see college as a possibility for me.
They were like family. When they saw something out of the ordinary, they sat us down and talked to us like we were their children.
They were our parents. When we needed something and they had it, they would sacrifice and get it for us and give it to us.
They would. We had someone do anything in their power to help us succeed.
Mr. Hall did everything. I can tell you, he worked tirelessly between the two schools, Pinevale and Southeast, to make things work for the students and the parents.
For example, we had a clothes bank. Some students didn't have sufficient clothes to wear to school.
We needed lunch money. They helped us with, they give it to us. Or Mr. Hall was to go ahead on in the lunchroom and eat. Nobody was turned down where you had money or you didn't have money. If you were hungry, you went in the lunchroom and ate.
We had some students who failed, who had to work to earn money to buy school clothes. So I set up night classes. And as a result, those night classes helped some students to catch up with their class for the next year.
We had night schools. If the students couldn't make it during the day, he would provide a night school for them to come. If they could work during the day hours, they could come at night and pick up from where they left off. We had summer school as well.
It was a given that because you are black, because racism exists, we must avail ourselves of every opportunity to let our light shine and for our teachers to let us know we are somebody, that we were somebody, that to let us know that, hey, you are just as good as the next person, you know?
Those teachers made you better people.
Our teachers provided the education that we needed to make it in society.
We didn't have the kind of teachers say, I got mine, you go and get yours. We had a teacher say, you got to get this, because this is going to make a difference in what you're going to be able to do later in life.
We had teachers that inspired us. We had that facility supplied us with the necessary things that would help us to make it wherever we decide to go.
Pinevale was totally oriented to helping students to succeed.
This started when we were in elementary school. Some of those same teachers knew us when we graduated. In fact, they were on the front row watching us graduate and had us in the 3rd and 4th grade.
We were going to represent them when we got out, when we went to college, when we went to the military, when we went to into the workforce, wherever we went.
So they wanted us to be more prepared than they were.
They took it personally.
It was caring and compassion from the teachers. And, you know, they treated all the students that way. There was no option for us to fail.
And the ones that strayed away, we was able to pull some of those back.
So when I go looking for them, if they decide to quit school.
When you walk in Pinevale, you were the top of the line, and you were the best, you were best.
You couldn't really say you were poor because everybody around you was in the same. I never thought of myself as being poor because everybody around me lived the same way.
Okay, how poor you might have been, or whether your parents had an education, or whether they worked in the fields, or they worked as a maid, or they taught school, or whatever they did, everybody was the same.
We had a strong bond. Everybody basically in the same neighborhood, knowing everybody, knowing all parents, good friends.
We never had babysitters because everybody, the village, everybody took care of everybody's people. If they were working and there was a mother at home, she looked out for everybody.
The parent was out. My mother would communicate with the next door neighbor, and we would keep an eye on each other, kids, and that wasn't a problem.
Miss Bessie was across the street. If mom was away, Miss Bessie took care of us. The Moores took care of us. Dr. Houseal's mother and sisters would take care of us.
And regardless of where you went, every parent was responsible for you when you came to their house.
And you never went hungry. If somebody had food, you had food too.
Life was good, and I felt very confident and very comfortable. You have that warm feeling that you're safe. That's what I felt.
We did have a good time at Pinevale. It was, every day wasn't a great day, but basically we enjoyed each other as a school.
We were just a close-knit community that cared about one another, and that remained to this day.
And that was the blessed part of being segregated, because they looked out for us.
That's how I got to understand what it takes a village was all about. And it really does take a village.
Talk about it takes a village. Well, this was the village.
It was almost like school didn't even turn out because we had practices and what have you. And everybody, if they didn't participate, they still came back to the campus.
All the good times we had there in that gym, you had the pep rallies. We used to have bonfires.
So up until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, we were still here at this school doing something. The challenge was great for people to get here on time, even in the rain, because they had to walk.
Well, people took the transportation, controlled the bus routes. And at one point we had one that might have been slightly prejudiced.
It was about 3 miles one way for me.
That was a whole hour and a half walk in the cold.
Oh God, I lived on West Hill Avenue, just right above Stanley Street. It was called at the time, right at the city limits of Valdosta. So we had to walk from there to Pinevale.
And this is walking from the west side of Valdosta to the south side of Valdosta.
I was very thin, and I can see why now. Because I averaged about 10 miles a day walking.
But our parents prepared us for that. They prepared us for the fact that when we walked from almost 5 miles each day to get to school. But the thing about that was they placed such high expectations on us that we were never late for school.
We had very little problems with absenteeisms and tardiness.
We were never absent. You know, you'd be surprised at the many kids that had perfect attendance.
Nobody straggled in. Mr. Hall was standing right there at the front door.
And we lived closer to Valdosta High School.
Of course, the white kids had buses, but we had to walk.
We would see the white kids come by on the buses as we were walking. And a lot of times, there would be an exchange of words there. Somebody hollering from a bus window, and then, of course, somebody hollering back,
We intend to maintain separate schools in Georgia, one way or another, come what may. We are in Georgia at the present time, building 1,036 new school buildings in every county in the state for both white and colored students, absolutely without any distinction whatsoever.
There was no equality, separate but equal. No,
It was supposed to be separate but equal, but it wasn't.
Separation part existed, but the equal part never existed.
As we grew up, we already knew and expected it to be that way. So we knew that as a child coming up.
First of all, you had no students, then you had teachers. You had no students, then you had textbooks. And your lunchroom staff was limited.
You just assumed to see one of the teachers in the lunchroom having Miss Lee back there serving food, as to see her in the classroom on the bulletin board, or you might see her sweeping or anything that needed to be done. They did it.
They wanted to give you a very small budget, and I continued to contend for a larger budget. That didn't make me most proper principal in the world, but I stuck to it.
We knew that the whites got the best of everything, and we had to take whatever we could get.
We used their old books.
The books we were issued at Pinevale, they were used by students at Valdosta High years before.
And we realized that by looking at some of the texts and when they were copyrighted.
They used to send over old equipment, old books. They'd load them up on the back of a truck, and then they would bring them over, and then they would push them off on the ground, and we would take them and tape them together, and that material, we didn't realize it at the time, but that material was obsolete by the time we got it.
Of course, Baby Mo and some guys would bring it out and dump it right there by the gym. Books all tore apart, and that's just where they did it. That's where they did it.
Nothing made me feel as low as helping to unload those pickup trucks and help get those books, because see, they were all written in by the previous students, and so I had a time with that.
Books, and if you're thinking about nice new textbooks, laboratory stuff in the chemistry lab and stuff like that. You know, you could have that, you know. Stuff in the home ec department you might not have, you know, that they had in their home ec department, you know.
For instance, if you're going to teach clothing for a semester, you got to have some cloth. You got to have some thread and some other things.
We had things that was handed down from other school to us. Now, I sung in the chorus, and I did play basketball for a little while. But everything we had, it had to be cleaned at Valdosta dry cleaner and then hand down to us.
With the band, football team, basketball teams, choirs. We won lots of awards for those kinds of things, which was made us feel really good. But then in the midst of that, you know, we still had hand-me-downs. It wasn't like we had new uniforms or new accessories or anything like that. So you felt good, but then you didn't feel so good.
Same thing about brick masonry. They want to limit the number of bricks they purchase to use and slab.
You have some hand-me-down stuff but you put your mindset together to put it together. Sometimes you got books, pads, you tape them up, and you figure out a way how to improvise. And that's what we did, a lot of improvise to be perfection, to do what we had to do.
I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything because the teachers was teaching the best with what they had. But we all knew everything that came down was hand-me-downs. And we didn't feel like that was fair.
Now, we had the teaching. We just didn't have the equipment the teachers needed to teach us. Because that's all they needed was the equipment. They give us the equipment, then we would have been handled.
We had all of that substandard books, substandard. Our teachers taught us.
Exactly.
They taught us. The fact that those books were substandard, that was no excuse.
When it would rain, we had to walk in the mud and the water to get into the school. And at Valdosta High, they didn't have that problem. Their parking lot was paved.
Yes, they was getting new books that and passing us the old books and new uniforms for the football team, and we had to suffer with what we had.
I remember when we went to camp, they went to camp down in Lake Park, which was a facility. Our camp was right in this gym. And we got our bedding from Moody Field Air Base.
For instance, helmets. You know, we played with at Pinevale. We played with the same helmets throughout our high school days. Valdosta would get new equipment in every year.
Stadium, the condition paled compared to Cleveland Field, Valdosta High, you know.
So let me say this. In Pinevale, first of all, we had no stadium. We had to schedule around Valdosta High and Mr. Bazemore.
The players at Valdosta High can go back and look at old film. We can't do that because we didn't have the funds for that, you know.
So I kept begging. So they bought the bleachers. They put the bleachers out there on the field, but they were not welded together.
Everything that we were allowed to do was always secondhand, rundown, not adequately supplied.
So I had a teacher named Louis Wright, who was a brick mason instructor. He could weld. So he took the assembling of the bleachers as his project. And after school in the evening, he had a second group of students, and they would weld the bleachers together.
We just wanted equal rights. All we wanted was for Pinevale to have the same thing that Valdosta High had. That's all we wanted.
We really wanted what you have, the rights to do the things that you were doing. We didn't say we had to be there.
So, you know, we didn't have a problem with being separate. It was the inequality that we had the problem with. You know, we didn't have a problem with being separate because we didn't feel that, because we were already a community. We were already family. We were already, you know, so we didn't feel that.
And our whites in the South in particular consider themselves superior to the blacks. You know, we've got to do it, but when I say do it, we've got to desegregate, but we're going to stay in power.
Well, let's put it this way. The white system did not want to accept black students, and that was made obvious. Some of them were so bent on having a segregated system, so I don't know whether they want to integrate or not.
About a month before it was due for school to start, we learned that the school system was going to be integrated.
We had been told our junior year at Pinevale High that that would be our last year there.
We were forced to close the doors because we were one of those states or cities that just refused to integrate.
Some of us didn't want to be there, and some of the white kids didn't want us there, along with the teachers, but we had no other choice.
They had to integrate whether they wanted to or not.
It was like you were forced to do something that you really weren't prepared to do it. And that's what happened to when they integrated the school system. And it was like a slap in your face, but you got to do this.
But I think Pinevale held out for a very long time.
Pursuant to a federal court order, we would join forces with the students at Valdosta High School.
Well, it was a shocker for us because that oncoming year we looked forward to having a great football team.
They had Coach Bazemore, I know Coach Bazemore, Coach Wilson, Coach Green, all of them. And they knew that they was going to get a great program coming from this program. At Pinevale at that particular time in 69 and 70 class.
There's no transportation, no buses. We walked from where I live on the south side of town, known as Little Miami, all the way to the old Valdosta High School where the football stadium was. And that's about 5+ miles.
Some of our teachers told us we probably see a lot of things we didn't know. One teacher told me, you know, don't worry about it. You know, you just keep going. There are going to be a lot of different things. So always try to read things.
Even during that time, you had more of a high dropout that 1 year that they integrated the system when kids dropped out of school. Just not here in Valdosta, I'm talking about all over.
Point is, we just knew we had to go to school. Back then, we did find a lot of them who dropped out.
When we integrated into Valdosta High School, as far as educational level, we used what we had at Pinevale, but we was below the standards of Valdosta High School.
One teacher also told me, I remember where she said, you got these old books that they had, that's fine. You take these old books that they had, you learn everything in it.
It was just the newer material that they was teaching that we had heard for the first time. That was the major problem there. Yeah, so that we had to put in extra time studying just to maintain.
There were things that had transpired at Valdosta High prior to our arrival that we had problems with. We found offensive, such as playing the song Dixie, the display of the Confederate flag. Those things remain.
I can remember walking by the band, a bunch of black folk walking by the band. They start off playing Dixie. And I could see some of the band members looking down because I looked up at them, they looking right at me. And that caused a lot of tension in the school.
We had to play the greatest band in Dixie. That was their theme song back then, and we had to play that. And they told us if we didn't play it or sit out or whatever, you just couldn't be in the band. It didn't conform enough to us to work with us. And we felt like we didn't want to play it because of the way it made us feel and what it meant to us.
So we say, look, this has to stop. And they refused to do so until we threatened to protest by walking out. So after a couple of meetings with the principal, Mr. Green, and the superintendent, a committee was formed, a biracial committee, and there was a compromise reached. So when the homecoming season rolled around, we ran a very popular Black female.
Miss Gloria Holloway, she was in the class of 1970. She was beautiful, she was intelligent. Valdosta High School had never had a Black person, female, to represent Valdosta High School.
And the white kids had 4 or 5 popular white females vying for the position. And the Black female won. And the white students protested, alleging or claiming that the Black student, that we had voted more than once. We had voted multiple times. And Mr. Green, the principal, declared the first balloting null and void, and ordered that there be a revote. And the white female won.
And they wanted to talk about it, and about the second or third meeting, we decided to walk out.
We decided that Friday morning, we would walk out in protest the ban of the Sundix, the Confederate flag, the things that they continued to do before we desegregated.
We just got up and walked to the end of the street down there. I think that's Ann Street and William Street.
It was kind of funny because we walked out of school and we were on our way back to take our school back, Pinevale High School. In our minds, that's what we was going to do. I know we probably got arrested.
The police came. They had the paddy wagons. And the chief himself, I believe he was the chief of police himself came and encouraged and tried to persuade us to leave and go home. And we refused to do so for quite a while. I don't know, maybe it was an hour or so. But eventually we left. And we were suspended 3 days, I believe.
Those who walked out couldn't come back and go in the band as well.
We walked off the football team as well. We weren't going to play football or anything. And we met with Coach Bazemore. He sent word that he wanted to meet with us. But he talked with us and got us back to play football.
All we had missed, that's one thing when they said it set us back. We missed days out of school. They were not going to give us makeup stuff.
I was removed from the student council. The other Black members who were student council members, they were removed as well.
It was not easy going back to Valdosta High School.
I received threats, phone calls. They threatened to burn our home. We would have rallies during the time we were out of school at the various Black churches and funeral homes. And there were 3 men who would take me from home to the rally back home with guns.
And really and truly, the Black kids coming from Pinevale, they lost everything. They lost everything. And you're going to force us to go to a school that we don't want to go to, and then we're going to be treated bad when we get there?
Gave up a whole lot. We had to give up our school. That was the main thing. We had to give up our schools.
But we weathered the storm, and we graduated, and but I understand that there were still obviously problems that persisted after we left.
We lost a lot. They gained a lot more than we did. We actually didn't gain anything.
We lost our identity. We lost a lot of our, I would say, our hope, our spunk. I was an A student.
If we look at it objectively, it really and truly has been an eye-opener for whites, more so than blacks.
Only thing that we gained was to experience their school system. It left us a safe haven to go into hell. That's the best way I can put it.
For his integration, if I had to name some white friends, I probably couldn't get past 5 on my hand. Basically,
those terrible things they had heard about blacks were not true. So I think it benefited whites more so than blacks in terms of the younger ones.
It's sad to say we have our black reunion and Valdosta have their white reunion. Some of the kids, black kids, go to Valdosta reunion. I plan on going the next time, the reunion, but we have ours and they have theirs. And so that's been over 50 years ago, and it's just the way it ended up.
And even here in Valdosta, we were just a microcosm of all of the cities in this country. But we were in the Deep South. Being in the Deep South, Confederacy, this is a stronghold. It's a stronghold for Confederacy, and it's a stronghold for Republicans. To this day it is.
And a lot of the teachers that should have went with us was not able to go because, quote unquote, they wasn't ready for their school.
In a roundabout way, they tried to put pressure on several people that they thought should not be teaching white children. Proud to say most of them came through.
I live next to a few of the teachers out there, and I would hear them talk about, the transition was very difficult.
Some even just stopped teaching, period.
Some of them had to go to a different school, I know. All our teachers didn't go over there, and I'm not sure all the reasons behind it.
People we had looked upon as our leaders, and when I say our leaders, our mentors, and we still did, as principals and as band directors and football coaches and the like. They had to assume a lesser role.
It's the old system of, hey, if I'm related to you, I look like you get a better chance than I do. Yeah.
And we were acutely aware of that, as were they. But it was a matter of they had to make a living.
Mr. Rebels was the only one I know that kept his title with the choir at Valdosta High School.
And that's why we felt isolated. We didn't have our people who we knew to go to talk to some of the teachers and everything like we used to do at Pinevale.
I realized that the system was going to do everything it could to see how many black teachers were eligible for retirement. That ousted quite a few black teachers.
I would go down to the bank and I stood there and I seen my social study away government teacher sitting there, one of the cream of the crops at the school, and she was standing out selling pies. So I said, why here? She said, I was forced to retire.
On the other hand, some of the black teachers would question their ability to teach school.
Our band director, Mr. Marshall, he was an excellent director, but when he moved to the Valdosta High School, they placed him with the junior high band.
He had a master's in music. And when he went over to Valdosta High, they wanted him to serve under the band director there, who had a bachelor's degree. And that wasn't fair.
And he could not present any of his music, because when he told us, just don't forget, we can always go out and practice among ourselves and play. He told me, don't ever stop practicing what you know.
In that band room back then, when you came out there, whatever you could play, you could play. And some of the kids that went to Valdosta High told me that some of the kids didn't know how to read music. But here, you could play anything that they put in front of you. You understand?
When I think about that, and I think about Mr. Marshall being, I would say degraded or downgraded or whatever you may want to call it. I wouldn't say that. In my eyesight and in my heart and my mind, he was a wonderful teacher, great teacher. He was an inspiration, to us all.
Our principals became assistant principals. Our football coaches became assistant coaches.
I remember Coach Edward Jones, who was our head coach, went over to Valdosta High School and became a receivers coach. He became an assistant.
There was still this obvious display and treatment that you're still less than we are.
And in the schools where the classrooms, most of the teachers were given remedial students.
When I think about Mr. Hall being a principal, he left the high school and he was the principal over at Southeast Elementary School. So from a high school to an elementary school, you still played an important role in the Black community.
White friend of mine who was in an administrative position slipped and told me that they're going to make you assistant principal at that Valdosta High School. But I thought it would not be best for me to serve as assistant principal at Valdosta High. Had it been that principal and found me, I realized there would be times I would have to defend my students, and I couldn't stand by and not defend my students. So rather than be put in a position where I couldn't protect my students, I didn't want to be there.
Some of the students with me at first, we didn't know, felt like a lot of them left, kind of gave up on us or whatever. I didn't know the whole story.
I have not, in my 81 years, heard anyone apologize for the atrocities and discriminatory evils that has been administered to us.
No white people have never apologized.
No, never. They don't intend to. Because in their mind, they felt like they was doing right.
No. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were adamant about the segregated lifestyle and mindset.
Say you're sorry, you got to admit you was wrong. So no.
No, I don't have any knowledge of that,
Not that I could remember. Not that I remember.
Not to me, but not just come out and say, well, Bo, I'm sorry this happened or whatever like that. But now I can say it was one person that we had a good discussion about it, Coach Wilson, but he never said he was sorry, but he said it wasn't right.
No, not to me. Either my parents. We came up the hard way. Let me put it that way.
No, not to me. Not to me, and not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
One person comes to mind, and that person is deceased now. Didn't come right out, didn't say it directly, but by his actions.
Not so much in school, but as I grew older in the workplace, I've had a vice president to come and apologize for some things that happened because I was the only Black there, and the way that the other ones were sort of isolating me.
I went to a reunion with the 1972 with Valdosta High as well, and a couple of them, I call them the hippies. A couple of, we sorry y'all, went there. It was bad. A lot of things you did.
I mean, you have some discussions sometimes with your white friends and stuff, and they'll say, I'm sorry you had to go through that, or stuff like that. Yeah.
But that's where we got it from, other students, not anything like the government, other teachers, other principals, or anybody like that.
Now, I would like to know why y'all haven't apologized to us. Why would y'all apologize? I mean, I don't think the word I'm sorry is too, but maybe we feel like we don't think that's enough to say the word I'm sorry, because that's a word.
I think it's because of the color of the skin. And that's my opinion.
So maybe they like to show it in actions and deeds, more so than just saying the word I'm sorry. And I would accept that much more because anybody can say I'm sorry and you don't really mean it.
Why should I apologize? It wasn't me. Yeah, that's the scapegoat. So if we don't get an apology,
I still, in my mind, think about the skin color. It's like none of us had any control over what color we are. We're all God's children. And I don't see why we just can't get along. Why the hatred? Why is there so much hate?
I kind of have the impression that what we were doing, the white folk was right. I don't need to apologize. Kind of like y'all came to our school and all of these things, but and I think a lot of times it's just the way they was raised.
I think it's human nature that some folks find it difficult to come right out and say, I'm sorry for this or that, but all of the actions tend to amount to such.
I'm thinking that perhaps they're embarrassed and they don't want to, it's admitting that it was wrong, and their foreparents were a part of it. If they come to you and say, I'm sorry, this happened. So if they never say that and you're just friends, going out to eat together or whatever, sitting, talking, then it's like, I wasn't a part of that. I didn't do that.
I've seen some nice that they want to be friends with you, but it's the repercussions that come behind it.
I think we don't want to take the blame for, well, I wasn't involved in this or that or the other. I wasn't involved with that. I hate that it happened and that sort of thing. In other words, when they're talking to you, all of these people now become liberals.
Yeah, we should be together. I think I have a lot of white friends. I have a lot of white friends. And we're very close. But at the time, way back, it was terrible because the clans could come and run across in your yard.
Oh, well, because of folk hate giving up stuff.
They may not feel like they were wrong. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times people don't feel like they're wrong. And then another thing is some folk want to say it, but they don't want to be ostracized by their fellow man.
I don't think they did anything wrong. I really do. That is what they were used to. That is how this South is. It's my way or somewhat right.
Well, it's a certain sense of pride that goes along with how you feel and what you think. And you didn't want to give up that pride. That's part of it.
I know what whites have to realize is that you may not have been back then, but you benefited. And you continue to benefit. You know, there's still this thing of white privilege. I mean, it's because color still matters,
Would we rather have separate but equal or integration? That came up. It's a mixed feeling.
Well, when it first happened, I thought it was good. After a couple of years, I quit.
Add to the segregated system.
I'm speaking for myself. I think that was the worst thing that ever happened to the black race when they integrated the schools.
I was comfortable with it. We were all on the same page.
If they had made the equal, I was all right with separate.
And you didn't have all that stress of people not wanting to sit next to you, people not wanting to go in the bathroom behind you.
You lost not only your integrity, you lost your respect. They didn't respect us when we went over there. Here at this school here, and not only just at this school, any black school that you go to any university, any HBC school, you're going to be treated a lot different.
And looking back, it's when I went to school. Both discipline and more caring of the children and making them get their work through their parents.
I will go into Valdosta. I will go into the integrated system. I was sore because I wouldn't let this stuff stop me.
Frankly, if it was, like he said, it would have been separate and equal, we'd have been all right. You know what I mean?
So being segregated in our world, it was just more comfortable and less stress.
Old way of doing things aided in ways, and it was a handicap in other ways. So there's some good and there's some evil. There's some good and there's some bad, and all of the whole situation.
When integration came, I wanted better for my child. I wanted her to have this. I wanted her to have that. I didn't tell her how I had gotten it. And that's the lack of communication in the Black community has a real bad lapsing. But there's so many parents who they didn't want their children to know what they went through. And that was wrong. You should let them know how things were.
We love to stay Pinevale. I would have loved to have stayed to that school, that environment, and all that it gave me, how I felt about the teachers and everybody else. But yes, and I'm sure that a lot of us would have stayed there. We went to Valdosta High because we had to.
But we wanted our children to have the very best. We don't care how hard we work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, but to give them better than what we had.
Togetherness is okay, if you accept it. But if you don't accept it, then it's a loss because you got a split between communities and between people.
Integration hurt us because we still was put at the bottom of the tier. Okay, sure, you could go to the school, but then the way that you was treated while you were there. If you didn't have the motivation to hang in there, and you said, if I can get out of here, I know I can write my own ticket. But some folks didn't have that motivation. Man, I ain't gonna take this.
I've enjoyed Pinevale. I think with the only thing I regret about Pinevale was the educational level. It's not that it wasn't the teachers' fault, but it was what was available to the teachers to teach us.
This was, in our view, another step toward achieving equality.
And then again, I'm kind of 50-50 on that because, you can't stay in this ball if you're going to go out and be something in the world. I'm going to stay with all black or I'm going to stay with all white. You have to mingle and mix if you want to advance in this lifetime.
But at the same time, it was sort of bittersweet.
I want to be able to go any place I want to go, being an American citizen, without problems.
We felt as though we're giving up quite a bit. School, Pinevale, we love Pinevale. I am a model. We are losing a part of ourselves, so to speak.
Integration was not the best, but it was the answer at the time. The kids were exposed to more information, but they couldn't handle the information that came so fast at them. They were not used to the type of structure that took place.
We needed to be a part of the movement, the civil rights movement.
We were very aware of King, what his movement was. We had a lot of the students that were like 2 years before us, older than we were, participated down at Cresses, the city in there.
Having that view, understanding that sort of helped us accept the fact that we had to leave our school and go to Valdosta High.
I think what was lost was part of our heritage going into the Valdosta High School. And I say this, the blackness that we had in our community, the history of our school, the togetherness that we had, that we were able to come to one another's aid no matter what happened. If there was a situation, the community rallied around that family to help them out.
The thing about racism, it lasts a long time. It still is today. It just lasts. It goes on and on and on. And I don't know what's the stopping point? I guess until the earth no longer exists.
I think we're going backwards.
I think it's going back to where it was.
I'm afraid.
I think it could be better. If more individuals learn how to love than to hate. And I look at that, and You know, how in the world can you hate somebody because of their skin color?
Well, on the national level, it's obvious that one former president is president. Nowhere to get around it.
Things are like they're trying to do white supremacy, again, not white supremacy, but white male dominance over everybody.
And he, in my opinion, would turn the clock backwards. I believe he would turn the clock totally backwards if he could.
How in the world can you hate somebody about what's been told to you and you don't even know that individual? How in the world can you hate somebody and still say I'm a child of God?
With the way these people that we're putting in offices that are making these laws, they can take you right back to where we fought so hard to come from. And that it doesn't make sense that in the year of 2023, that they're doing the very same things that they was doing in 69, in 64, 65. The very same thing.
We're pretty much back to square one, a segregated school system, pretty much, because, and that's pretty much universal, you know. I want to say universal. Certainly in the South, and I wouldn't be surprised if not in other regions of the country as well.
Most of the whites move out in those suburbs, and then they build schools out there for them, where we're in the city, and a lot of the people in the city can't afford those houses, so that makes it predominant. Valdosta High School predominantly black, Lowndes County, Lowndes High predominantly white.
You see black superintendents of schools now because the school system is predominantly black, and whites have migrated out of the city, and the cities, and your elected board members are, you know, the majority now are black, you know. So, and so yes, it's still a matter of race.
You can see some things are blatant, but most cases institutional. We're talking about in our finances when we have to go to the bank to get a loan. You're talking about real estate agents who would like to steer us toward the black community when we're looking for a piece of property. All that stuff still exists.
You might get into the clique for a minute, but if you don't come up to their expectation, you're gonna lose that. Okay, so it's designed to keep a certain group up here and a certain group down here to support this group up here.
It is better than it was, but there is a long line of ways that it could be much better.
Things that's happening now, they need to turn themselves back and ask the Lord for help, because things now is too upsetting for the world to continue to grow.
Things are still going on now that that I'm just ashamed about. You know, because I know other countries are watching us from afar, and I'm just blown away by the audacity.
With Trump's rhetoric and so many people are for Trump, it's like we're just going backwards, in my opinion. You know, it's just, I just don't understand how they have all that faith in him and they know exactly what he's doing, you know.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what the slogan, the you know, let's make America great again, what that's all about, you know. There are those who may pretend that it's not, but it is.
They just want to push you aside, back like when it was back in the 1800s when white men dominated everything. And that's what they're trying to get to. About the only thing, if they could put back in slavery, I believe they would.
And we have progressed some, along with that, but it's still not the same. And I can tell you, as being a nurse, I have worked with people that come under me that I have trained, and they'll make 30 or 40 cents more than I would per hour.
Until the attitude of the people change, you're going to always have this. You're going to have this separate. It ain't going to be equal, but you're going to have separate.
Same place it was in 1930. Just camouflage, like I told you one time. It's like a cardboard box which you put icing over it, and it looks like a cake, but it ain't a cake. The same. Just the same. It's still racist. It's still everything it's always been. Even though the black, the brown, the green, and everybody got good educations and everything is going. And that few little nuclear group is still trying to hold on to that power, that supreme power that I'm greater. It's losing it day by day, and they are tripping like dogs.
But I don't care what nobody say. You're going to see some of what you see down in here, you're going to see there too. I don't care where you go in the United States, you're going to find some. I don't care where you go in the country or the world, you still going to find some of that. Okay? So my thing is that it's just a matter of you being constantly able to make adjustments and deal with life.
They are tripping big time. They're losing it. Like Donald Trump. He's losing it so bad, and I really, deep within, I feel sorry for him.
And what that says to me is that either the supporters are just like him, or he's doing what they want him to do, and that's scary. That's very scary.
Even if he know he's not trying to go back to win, he don't want to be the president, but he know once I get there, my job is to divide this country. But it's going to even be
worse.
It's going to be divided even worse than now.
There were some people, some whites that I heard say that they voted for Obama, but then, and see, they tied his hands. Then they couldn't, they were so outdone by how that turned out, they decided to jump from Obama to Trump. I said, now, how did you come up with that?
I think we're still a young nation. 200 or 300 years is nothing compared to Germany and France and Russia. These places have been established AD.
I told some of my white friends who are lawyers, they say, I can't believe it. And they were talking about, well, Donald Trump is this, Donald Trump is that. I say, well, and boy, we can't believe that he's the nominee, And then he became president. I said, well, it says more about this country than it does about Donald Trump, and it really does.
But let's make America great again. I don't think he really understood what he was actually saying, what he was actually posting. I still think he just want to be out there showing I'm an actor.
It says that we have yet to get to that promised land that Martin Luther King talked about. We haven't arrived yet. And when I say we as a people have not arrived, this country has not arrived yet.
And I think it's going to take generations and generations of individuals to grow before we can really be comfortable with one another.
Race relations will never change. You know why? It could. Don't get me wrong, it could. But you got to want to change. You got to want to change. And that's the problem right there. People don't want to change.
Just who America is formed on. And it's getting worse because now the white kids don't know who they are, the black kids don't know who they are, the red kids don't know who they are. Everybody's just, like I say, they're like the children, going back to the children in Israel, where they were running around in the wilderness.
We've got some growing pains going on here. And when you find someone like our number 45, for example, who wants to turn back the time, and he does all these things that would spark confusion and misinformation, where people are so confused they don't really know the gains that we've made over the years. They dismiss all of that. We've been set back somewhat, but I do believe we'll overcome it.
Social media is the worst thing that could have ever happened, but in a good way, it has allowed people to express themselves and be themselves. And what that has done for me, it has allowed me to see you for who you are instead of what I thought you was.
I think we've had plenty of time, but given some time, we'll get together. We'll connect. And a lot of that old mentality, it's slowly going away, but I think it's going away really slower than faster than it should be.
That's the scary part, because of people that you have been around, you never would have thought that they had those views based on the way they were.
It just goes back to past history with white people, that black people will never be equal to them. They will always do what they can to keep us down. We have to fight and fight hard to accomplish what we have. So it's just, I say it's just systemic. Just so. That's the way they could see us as second-class citizens, and I think they're gonna always see us as second-class citizens. And it's just a fight every day to say, I'm just as good as you are. My skin color has nothing to do with what's in my brain.
I'm a true believer in the word. So I am at ease with the way things are, because at some point, the good master is going to play that, not the checkerboard. He's going to move whatever is necessary to keep man in his place.
I'm optimistic to the point that I know that things have changed for the better for years. You know, you got to know that things are better than it was for our parents.
Right now, I'm at the point where I'm doing a lot of praying and hoping that people will wake up and see what's right and what's wrong, and have that feeling in their hearts and their souls and their spirits. And just to know, whether you're black or white, you need to teach the young people to work together, keep our country going.
I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there. And the reason I do is I think it's part of God's plan.
I ask the Lord to let his will be done, and he loves us all. He wants us, I think, to live together and to love each other and protect each other. And if that's his will, it's going to happen, regardless of who doesn't like it,
You can't be on top of everything over everybody forever. And that's the whole thing. They see the shift and they can't control the shift, and you're not going to control it. You're not going to. So
All right, first of all, let me say that I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, World War II. My bachelor's degree, Savannah State College, Savannah, Georgia. My master's degree from Columbia University in New York City.